everyone and welcome to my channel. My name's Rhiannon and today we're going to be doing a brief history of the sewing machine. Arguably, the invention of the sewing machine begins in 1755 with the invention of a double-pointed needle with an eye at one end by German engineer Charles Frederick Wiesenthal. However, there isn't any conclusive evidence that the needle was ever intended to be used as part of a larger machine. Our first machine design is from 1790, when an English inventor called Thomas Saint designed a machine for sewing together canvas and leather. It used an awl to poke a hole through the material to allow for a chain stitch to be passed through. If there was an original prototype, then we don't know if that exists. However, one was made in 1874 by a sewing machine manufacturer William Newton Wilson, who donated the Saint prototype to the Science Museum in London. By the early 1800s, sewing machine designs came flooding in from all quarters. Thomas Stone and James Henderson developed a machine in 1804, the same year Scotsman John Duncan created a multi-needle embroidery machine. However, not all these designs were functional. In 1810, Balthasar Krems developed a machine for sewing caps, but that was deemed defective. And in 1814, a tailor from Vienna called Josef Madersberger developed a design which incorporated many of the ideas of the previous machines that had been invented, but he didn't manage to create a working model until 1839, by which time it was really too late and things had rather moved on. In 1829, Barthélemy Thimonier, a French tailor, had produced a practical, working and popular machine using a barbed needle to create a chain stitch. His patent was granted in 1830 and he opened a clothing manufactory making uniforms for the French army. You would have thought this would be a success story. However, in 1831, fearing lower wages and lack of jobs, 150 tailors stormed the factory and destroyed many of the machines. 75 of these rioters were arrested. And Thimonier retired from the company shortly after, with the whole company being dissolved only a few years later. With working machines now firmly within the industrial zeitgeist, it wasn't long before new machines were coming in from all quarters. Across the pond, in America, Walter Hunt and John Greenough each produced their own machines. In England, John Fisher puts together a machine using the knowledge of previous decades, though fails to file his patent correctly. Elias Howe, who in 1845 created a hand-cranked machine that held the fabric vertically and used an eye-pointed needle, that's important for modern sewing machines, returns to the US from England to find that many manufacturers had been using his patent to create their own machines. He successfully sued many of them, including Isaac Merritt Singer. Yes, that Singer. He had painted his sewing machine on the 12th of August 1851, changing the face of the sewing machine industry forever. This period in the development of the sewing machine, fueled by fierce industrial competition, leads to a massive amount of improvements. The Wheeler and Wilson Company invented the four-motion feed mechanism, which is still in use today. Charles Miller produced a machine that sewed buttonholes. The treadle machine freed up both hands, and the presser foot kept all the seams in place. By 1856, the sewing machine combination was formed, consisting of many of the top manufacturers: Singer, Howe, Wilson, Wheeler, Grover and Baker, who pooled their patents, which meant that all other manufacturers had to attain a license of $15 per machine to sell their machines. That led them to dominate the market. This continued up until 1877, when the last patent finally expired. By the 1860s, sewing machines weren't just used in industrial capacity, they began to make their way into homes. That revolutionised home sewing. A dress that previously would have taken weeks of painstaking work or a hefty fee to a tailor could now be made at home within a couple of days. This was used even further with the introduction of electric sewing machines by Singer in 1889, though many homes still lacked electricity and the treadle and hand-cranked models continued to be produced up until the 1950s. Now onto my machine. The model I have here is dated to from the serial number precisely to May 1922, and it's a treadle model. So now I'll show you a little bit more about my personal machine down here. So we'll start off with a little tour of the machine. We have these wonderful little drawers in there. I have an original manual. Also all these extra attachments and things. I haven't quite worked out what all these do yet, but I'll be looking forward to finding out. Another drawer over here. And in here, I think this is an absolutely wonderful invention. So we'll start with folding it out. So, lid comes around like that. And you lift this. Lift the machine into place and set it on its rests. Then you have to get the belt on. So you find a certain point just there where it's got this little sort of nub. Don't know if you can see that, guys. You hold that and hopefully feed it round, which should bring the belt back on. If not, you may have to get under the machine and do it yourself. Now, I suspect that my machine, before I use it properly, needs a little bit of oiling and maybe this belt tightening as well. Now for the machine itself. There's the little hand crank, as you can see, makes it go, and the treadle wheel as well should... Oh, it definitely needs oiling. Should also make that go. But I'll quickly show you how you thread it. So I've got this lovely little wooden bobbin. Sorry for the jump cut there, you didn't want to see me try and thread the thing. You just want that back behind the presser foot. Oh, I should mention that these lovely little wooden spools were already in the machine when I got it. I don't think that they're 1920s, but they are rather lovely anyway. We'll keep them for posterity. You slide this back and pop in your bobbin that way. Now, unless there's thread in the machine, you don't want to be running it because it will just cause a mess down here behind the plate. So I've got an old tea towel and I'll show you the working mechanism hopefully. That is how you use the 1920 sewing machine. So I thought it was only appropriate that for my 1922 machine I should do a 1920s dress, and I've got all my little embroidery bits done on the main body of the pieces, so join me next time when we'll finally make these into a dress on my lovely old machine. Thank you for listening and hopefully see you soon. Bye! Bartholomew Timonier. In 1829, Bartholomew Timonier had developed... With working sewing machines now firmly within the... Across the pond, in America, Walter Hunt and John Greener. Walter Hunt John Greener. In England, John Greener...